This is Otsu, and this is Observations with Otsu. I hope you're having a great start to the week. It's Monday here, kind of in the middle of the day. We got about 8-9 hours to go. So we're kind of going to go over this. As you guys may know already, the gist is I look at things from a weekly perspective for Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then if we have time, we go into some alts. I'm probably going to start covering Solana more so that we can kind of get into that. And so, again, if you have been here, you kind of know like I look at key observations, just one or two basic things, because most of the time I would say you really only need to know one or two things about a chart. You don't need to have all these intricate things, these massive expensive tools. You just need to know a few things. So I kind of usually go over at least one, but sometimes two or three key observations, and then I go over one long scenario, one short scenario. It's as simple as that. Alright, so looking here, we're going to clear this out like we usually do. Go to the weekly. And we can see, so we look at the previous week and really the previous weeks, and this is something that I've mentioned week after week. So go ahead and watch, I guess, 3 videos ago, even 4 videos ago, I mentioned that when we get an uptrend like this, it does not go impulsive the way that you want to. The weekly and higher time frames do not behave the way that they do on the daily or the 4-hour. They behave differently. That's also why you can't trade certain EMAs on the weekly. That's even why my Arun stuff is not as effective on the higher time frames or the really low time frames, by the way, like 5 minute and less. There's a certain time frame for everything. And this is kind of the same thing. So the bad news is we wicked above, we made a new high. That's pretty much the best news that we had over the last week. The bad news is that we had one of the lowest lows of the past month. But the good consolation within that bad news is that we did close bullish. So that's okay. That is not necessarily a bad thing. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm choking up all of a sudden. But what we can see here is that we did not. This is a pretty disappointing week, as we can see. We had a lot of good news, and for where it to close where it did is not exactly what we want to see. However, we're not exactly doing that bad. Today, as we do with almost every week, we have a sell-off. In the past 4 Mondays now, we've had pretty much a red day for a Monday. So again, there's no surprise here. Other than that, there's not too much to say about this. We do have a bear divergence though, and so this is very very small. I think this is not visible on the line chart, by the way, or it is. Sorry, we have a higher high and then we have a lower high, so that's much more prominent. I should have said. So that's something that I'm watching out for. When you have a weekly divergence, it tends to be a little more, doesn't have to necessarily be bearish. A lot of times it does. The problem with me is that this isn't really a good price point to be bearish. If we were making new highs right now and we had the 1 week divergence, I would probably say sell half your stack. But it's a little bit different right here. And so we can see from here, this was, it was actually more on the higher time frame. This is a representation here. We had the divergence right here, so I guess I should have put it right here. And so that was a few things. One, it was much more higher in scale, and we had a new high. And then once you get something going from basically 36 to 52, that's a little more prominent, right? And the funny thing is, people were way more bearish or bullish here than they were right here. So that's something else to keep in mind. That's another video or another topic. So, but this is something to be considerate of. The Arun gives us a bullish or a bearish, consolidation. It's pretty high up. It's a little bit wider than normal. The bear line is at 65%. So you have about 8 weeks to kind of confirm this. So this could potentially take 2 weeks to play out, this divergence, and not the divergence per se, because that'll be invalidated by then, but the whole consolidation as far as making a new high could take despite the fact that we're like 2% from the high, could take another 2 months to get to where we need to go. And one of the reasons is we also have kind of this situation right here. And so we're hovering below it. I think if we'll go back to the candle chart, I think it kind of shares it a little bit better here, because I usually do the wicks. And if you incorporate this wick into here, you can kind of slim this down a little bit, so it kind of matches up. So this 32,000 price point could be a little elusive to us, and hopefully it's not. But I mean, that's pretty much my key observation for Bitcoin, honestly. We have a divergence there. We have clearly some sort of price protection. I don't want to call it like that. I don't perceive the market as people trying to protect it necessarily. And I don't think you should, even if it is true, by the way. Because a lot of people tend to say, well, there's market makers trying to do this, do that. Well, that's okay. Like, you can believe it or not. Like, I do think that that's true. But the thing is, what does that get you? And that's the thing that goes back to my correlation theories. Like, what does it get you to even care about? Even if it could be true, what does it matter? It doesn't really pertain to you, because market makers work with millions and millions and even billions of dollars, whereas you might have $5,000 to your name, you might have $50,000 to your name. Even if you have $500,000 to your name or $1 million to your name, what does that get you? See what I'm saying? Like a market maker is designed to chop you out, and knowing they exist and knowing they do this and do that is a way to psych you out. So just focus on the basic charts. Like, people still make money off of this, right? So this isn't a surprise to nobody. So anyway, don't focus too much on that, right? So anyway, the divergence there, that's the main key observation on the weekly. We just need to be mindful of that. And everything's going fine for now. You can't really tell anything other than that on the weekly, so we're going to go to the daily and kind of see this. This is something that I've brought up for weeks now, and I knew this would happen because, again, I talk about the big impulse on the weekly. I knew that we would get a chop for probably, I estimated around 2 months, and so we're already 1 month in, and we pretty much got a repeat of this, right? So that's kind of what I'm seeing. And honestly, we've been doing that all year. We had the pump up, slow bleed, chop, pump up again, slow bleed, chop, pump up again, and presumably another slow bleed, chop. So we'll see how that goes. On the daily, one of my big things here is marking this out. I've marked this out for quite some time. There's two ways to do this. One, you could just flat out do the liquidity thing like this. This isn't really valid anymore because we had the pump up and deviation, so this does count. This does help me confirm that this is a little more bearish than I want it to. We also have that daily divergence in addition to the weekly divergence. And so you can see there on there you have the RSI, and you also have the AO as well. So that is not something you want to see if you're a bull. And so I am cautious, especially now that we've failed this level right here. I'm no longer interested in longs as far as making that play. Another thing, however, so if we get rid of this, and I'll add it back into a second. Another thing we can look at here is this section right here. If we kind of do a broad stroke here, it does cover this, it bounces, and then it retests. So right here, I'm not interested in shorts as well, because this is a range low. I would want to wait for this to break. So I mentioned my key observations for Bitcoin. So what about positions? So right now, I'm not interested in longs because of this situation, right? I want this to recover again. And quite frankly, since we've already tried and failed a second time, I would want to wait until we get to a completely new high. I really would. So something like this, I would not long until we made it above to new highs. At this particular point, as long as we hold this level, I will not long until we make a new high. And so this is about where I would place it. I would place the long somewhere around price discovery in this region. It's about 32,000. I would place my stop below the range, even the range low potentially, and then maybe target like 40,000, something like so. or even like 35, but that's kind of getting too low for me. I want this to be at least a minimum of 2, if not 2.5. So I like this position right here. The only problem really is you have this struggle right here. I've mentioned this before. You want to focus on the mid, but that is about 40,000, so that works out well. So this is the long area that I would currently be interested in at this time. If we wait to a new high, it would go there. So that's one option. If the more likely of the two would be if we failed this region, and then we would short that. And so that's the short option, is that if we wait until this fails. I'm not interested in this low per se. I don't think it has a lot of strength, especially if it breaks down here after that big impulse and failure. So I would target something like so, and you could even target in the mid, honestly, a little bit above the mid, and target somewhere around right here actually, so to about 2.26. So that's not bad. That would probably be one of my short options there. Again, I'm much more hesitant to do shorts when we're in uptrends, and we can see here on the weekly with my color band is that we're still blue. If this was gray, I would want to short more, but it's blue, which means bullish, so I'm not interested in long-term shorts. That would be something I do on the 4-hour or the 1 hour, something like that. So those are my two observations. Positions. Another option would be if we broke down here, I might be interested along at, where does this go? At this position. And so that would be a reflection of here, basically. And so I would probably target somewhere below here. And if we even get a dip below here, I would even be interested to do maybe a shorter stop. But we'll target this one, and then I would still target the 40 or even 35, and so that would be much more beneficial long term. And so I think you could short and then close here and then long again. You could. I'm not a big fan of longing and shorting multiple times. I'm more of a single directional trader. The more years that I am in crypto, the more I think that it's not good to long and short at the same time. It's only good to do one or the other. And so we are in an uptrend, so it's not worth shorting. The problem is that if you know, like for example, the top from 60 or whatever K, like I knew that this was a top, and so I sold all my positions, but I didn't short. I still didn't short because you never know, right? So I felt like a good hedge was, all right, you have a daily divergence here, you have a 3 week bearish divergence on the high time frames. So it's like, all right, I'm getting my positions out, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. So, and we never had that before, right? So it's like, why? It just made sense. Anyway, different story. So this is the third option that I would look at for this long. So anyway, that's Bitcoin. We can kind of cover the 4 hour in a few minutes here, but the thing is, we're kind of hovering. We're not really doing so hot right here. I can see this failing, honestly, but these are your three levels, right? You got your top level, you got your mid, and then you got that other level here. So if this breaks down, I don't have a lot of faith in this wick right here. So I think 28.3 would probably be good, a good way to kind of go through that. And one of the reasons is, yeah, we had this structure right here that would complicate that price, but we also blew through it pretty fast. So there's no reason that we would hold that again. So anyway, that's Bitcoin. Let's go to Ethereum. And again, we're still kind of hovering within the 1% range. Completely fine. We're going to delete everything. And so we had a little bit better of a bullish week than we did with Bitcoin. As you know, we barely had a bullish week last week, despite how bullish it really was. And again, that is disappointing, but I do want you guys to focus on the fact that it's still closed bullish. It's still okay. And when you look at price history, you don't look back and be like, oh, that was such a bullish day or bullish week, but all this stupid news, and you don't focus on that, right? And that's why I don't focus on news in the present day that much. Yes, it does have an effect on the price, but the price is what has an effect on price in the long run, so not the news. So like, I don't look back in here like, oh, you remember when Elon Musk did this, or you remember that all this, other things, right? Like, you can look at those, and yes, it does make sense sometimes, but you never put that together in the long term, and it never, even if you try to, it's not really worth the energy. So anyway, small rant. I usually get one in about once a video. So we did close pretty bullish. We almost closed above that candle, and that, again, nothing surprising. Like, just because you close under it doesn't mean it's bad necessarily. Like, there's people saying that there's blow off tops, that this is the end of the market, blah blah blah, and there's nothing definitive that tells us that right now. It could be, yes. I'm not opposed to that, and I've even addressed that I'm a little more bearish now than I was last week. However, there's no reason to think that we are going to go down to 15,000 again. I saw something a day or two ago saying that we're going to go to 12,000. Why? Like, there's nothing telling you that that's the case. Like, you and the person, really, it was I don't remember who it was, but they just posted one arrow, and it's just like going like this to 12, and we're like, oh, we're doing that. I'm like, well, why? What's your data? What's the point of that? And again, they're free to do that, and I'm not hating on that, but like, where are you getting that information from? There's nothing per se that's telling us that will happen. It could, and they will look like a genius if that's the case, but very rarely do these blindsided charts ever go past a 24-hour clickbait special. That's basically all it is. So anyway, going back to Ethereum, there's nothing really here that's compelling me to say, like, we're going to go down to 1,000. I mean, we've been at this range literally since like May of last year, so literally like a whole year. So what makes you think that we're just going to flash crash 50% in one day to 1 week when we haven't done that all year? And so if anything, it tells us that it could be quite the opposite. So the biggest thing, again, is this right here. I keep mentioning this Adam and Eve pattern. This was a confirmation of that Adam and Eve pattern, but it deviated. It didn't go through. And so now we kind of have a touch above here. We had another pump up. We have a rejection. This tells us that we could have more of a cup and handle situation. I don't really prescribe to those kind of patterns that much because they don't happen that often. But we also have some sort of depending on how you want to view this is probably the best view of an ascending triangle. And so this is the main option I'm looking at. I'm actually more bullish with Ethereum for the next 2 to 3 months that I am for Bitcoin, and that's another confirmation that we might be seeing an altcoin run very soon. I'll mention the Bitcoin dominance chart after this because I forgot to mention it, but I do think I have that theory there that I'll mention, and actually I think I'll put that in the Discord group because I told them I would. So anyway, this is the situation I see. This is the key observation that we're still in a big ascending triangle range. We still have the deviation, yes, but that so far hasn't proved to really be anything. We haven't had the down move too much because of that, and even when we did bounce off of there, so that's a good sign. We might still get a touch about 1800s, and I think we could, and honestly I think that we should. I think that would actually help with a long thesis. So anyway, that's the weekly with that. And it's starting to be a little more in context because I mentioned last observations video where I don't really understand Ethereum as much as other charts, and that's okay. It's okay, no matter how much money you make, no matter how skilled you are, it's okay to admit that you just don't know the charts that well at certain days, right? Sometimes it doesn't make sense, and this is a little too choppy for me, for my perspectives. But now it's starting to make more sense in context with that weekly triangle that I mentioned. Going into here, we have no divergence, nothing like that. Actually, if we go back to the weekly shortly, we do have a bullish consolidation 8 room going into a wedge, which is a good sign. That is confirming something like this. When we have something, when it goes flat and the bearish line still goes down, we have a much faster uptrend. So I am expecting Ethereum to have a much more bullish outlook for really the rest of the month and even towards the end of August versus Bitcoin. And that again could be a sign that altcoins are waking up. And we'll focus more on altcoins on Wednesday's video. So with here we had the big up impulse, we had that rejection, slow B, but it still counted, so we're still kind of in this range. And that's kind of where, like, I did mention that if we broke this, that this would be in something to long, and we didn't break it. We got close, but we did not break it. I'm also starting to think that maybe just a break of the 21 might be better. So anyway, that's how I view that. There's really not much to say as far as this goes. If I wanted to long it, that's where I would long it. I'm not interested in longing or shorting this. If I did long, it would be something like this, holding below the range like this, something like that. Not exactly what I want to do, but it works, and I'd probably target maybe like 28. Let's see where it lands here on the on this frame here. So yeah, about 28. That's kind of what I was thinking. So something like that will be probably your safest long attempt. Another observation, if you wanted to short this, honestly the best time to short it would be now, and go something like so. Target above the top of the range here, and then target maybe at this level. The tricky thing is we already retested this, so you're asking for this to break. If it breaks down, then it should break down pretty considerably, and so somewhere like so, about 20%. So that's roughly about where I would put it. So you're probably looking at something like so. And again, it's a 1.5, so again, the R&R isn't there because we're still more bullish than we are bearish right now. But this is probably my, just kind of get this going here. This is probably my number one long option. This is my number one short option. So, and I don't really like either one. I like the long one better, but I'm a little neutral, slightly bullish on Ethereum. So anyway, that's that one. We're gonna cover Solana really quick, and then we'll end the video. Go to the weekly. And this right here, I didn't want to present this, but it was already on my feed and I'm recording. So this is a position that I did cover in Nowhere Discord. I have since closed this position. I actually did close up above here. Let me see if I can figure out exactly where I did it at. Yeah, it was right here, 36%. So we closed right at this line right here, roughly around there. And so that was a good move. I didn't want to close it early, but we got 36% in like a really short amount of time. So I'm like, I'm closing it. It worked well. That was our biggest position for the trading challenge. We started at $30,000. Now we're at about $33,000 over the course of 1 week. And that's not too bad, getting 10% in 1 week, of course. And that's, I know that sounds low. That might sound low to some people, but it's really not. Like if you got 10% per week, like that's pretty good. But anyway, especially for just a basic trading challenge portfolio, not like a main portfolio. Anyway, you got to kind of get in the habit of being more consistent. Getting more consistent smaller gains or even average gains is better than trying to go for it all. That's why a lot of you guys get liquidated. Anyway, different story. But we sold here. We're now down below there. We're almost back to where I was. This is an area of buy for me. I guess I can do this for the analysis for this week. I don't know if we'll get back to that entry or not. I think it should long here, but we'll see how that goes. If we do, I'll plan to long that position. As far as this goes on the weekly, I think the weekly actually is probably one of the best looking weekly positions out there. I think Aave and Compound take very good. They're also one of the best as well. Excuse me, but I like this a lot. I actually also like this on the Bitcoin pair. And I'll talk more about Bitcoin pairs on Wednesday. But this is an incredibly good chart. We got a bullish divergence on the 2 week. This looks very, very good. I really like this a lot. Anyway, but that's a completely different story. On the 2 week here, we got just up here. We haven't got quite the break of that, but this looks good. I would like to see this. If the RSI breaks the 2 week on Solana, that's really, really good in my opinion. Anyway, we're going to go back to the weekly because I'm getting ahead of myself. So as far as this goes, the last week was very bullish. It stayed bullish. So this is where, again, there's a lot more strength in altcoins. Makes me think the altcoin season might be coming up. We'll see how that goes. Arun is under a bearish consolidation. It just started, but it's it's at that same 60% range. So we're looking at about 8 weeks potentially from making a new high, and we'll see. The way that Solana is going, however, that could be broken. It always can be broken, and so this is kind of the area that I like the most right here. If we break 32, we didn't break it here, so that's something that we look forward to. Other than that, this is pretty healthy. We did get a breaker move, so that means we could touch back to as low as $22. If we go on the daily, again, this kind of shows what we were talking about. I'm very interested in a touch roughly right around here, so about high 25s. That's kind of what I'm looking at for a long position. Kind of overextended on the RSI. I've got the bearish consolidation starting on the Arun, so that seems like that could play out. If this goes below, then I'm not interested in longing necessarily until maybe about the $22 range that I just talked about. So other than that, that's basically it for the key observation. It would be like the weekly just looks so freaking good, guys and girls, and it looks really, really good. And so that's something that I'm looking forward to. This is something that makes me... Solana was the coin that made me realize that I think altcoins might be getting a run pretty soon. They look much better than they did 3 to 6 months ago, and even 2 months ago. It looks really good, and I like it a lot. So as far as long and short positions, I kind of addressed those, but I'll address them once more. Long position would be something like here, and maybe, this is a little variable. I probably keep under here, target the highs here again, and if the best short option would be if this fails, so something like so, maybe target above into this wick area. You could even go as low as this, I would say, but then you're running the risk of this area retouching, so that's not the best. And even if you get to 22, it's a very weak. So I'm not really interested in shorts, but this is probably your best in terms of the best ratio of risk to reward. I don't like that, but this is much more unlikely to happen with the R value, and this is too risky in my opinion to do something with a shorter stop like 5 or less. So anyway, this is the main position that I'm personally looking at. And I'm not really interested in anything here unless we can reclaim maybe the $30 range. So anyway, so that's Solana. That's also the video. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. And again, if you haven't joined Discord, go ahead and join my Nowhere Discord. I'll leave it in the description. I'll see if I can post this on Twitter as well, because I think I sort of was going to mention that and do that. So anyway, let me know what you think. I'll see you next time.